Introducing Charlie Kruse. He is the founder and CEO for Inspire.World, which now is in 4 countries: US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. Started about 6, 7 years ago. He has a phenomenal story. Now is in beta state of growth, and he could share a lot more about where we're at, where we're heading, and the velocity that it's taken on, because we're engaging charities, nonprofits, schools, associations that are coming on board to be able to really join in this phenomenal aspect. So I'm just proud and excited to be able to introduce to you Charlie Kruse. Charlie?
Wow, that's a big buildup here. I hope I, meet your expectations with that buildup. Glenn, Steve, it's very nice to hear your stories here. I think that what you're doing there is wonderful, and it certainly is in lockstep with who we are as a company with Inspire.World. So, just a little bit of my background, kind of the impetus for creating the fundamental model. So, years ago, I was sanctioned to design a division of this company that was in the high school sports fundraising space called Varsity Gold. And their signature product was a gold card that was a credit card sized card. You have the picture of the high school football team on the front. You have a bunch of merchant discounts on the back.
I remember that.
Yeah,
I remember that, like the coupon book thing, but it was a card.
It was a card. It was a card. So that was really my indoctrination into looking at fundraising for the first time through a business lens. And what I discovered is that you had an industry that was wholly transfixed in the physical world. In the case of Varsity Gold, their model was that they were asking kids to, manage product, manage money. They were selling those products, door to door, obviously in a limited geography and during a limited window of time. They're selling products to consumers that they're not really in the market for, and you're monetizing that consumer, one time a year for whatever the price of the product that they're selling at the door. And so when I looked at it through that critical business lens, I was just blown away at, all the holes in that business model. And so, I too have a little bit of a, technology background here, and, Steve, and that model just walked me back in the dark ages about 1,000 years. And so that was, really kind of the impetus for me creating Inspire.World, was to bring tools to the fundraising space that we all use every day to much more efficiently raise money for, organizations, whether they be nonprofits, churches, youth sports teams, schools, whatever. We're agnostic. We want to help everybody. And so the fundamental model is this, and I'll show you an example of a site. So just think in terms of your own life, how much money you spend just buying stuff. You buy everyday products, you buy food, you buy things for other people, you book travel, on and on and on and on. And all of that money that you are spending as a consumer in its current constitution goes to some outside third party. Like, I bought that product from Amazon, or I went to Target and I bought that product. And when you go to those sources and buy it from that third party, they keep all of the profits from those purchases. And I'm like, well, maybe there's a better way for people to, and I'm using this as a verb, to retail. And what we can do now, thanks to our model here, is we can take the same money that people are spending and spread it wider to have a greater social impact, instead of it automatically going into the already rich pockets of the Jeff Bezos. And so how we do that is we create for that organization for free. I know you hate to hear that, Glenn. For free, a white label e-commerce platform that will be pre-populated with all sorts of everyday products and ultimately services. And the idea here is that when a consumer who is somehow connected to that organization and is today in the market to buy a widget, instead of automatically going to Amazon and, let's say, buying that widget for $100, they can now come to your site because they really subscribe to what you're doing, believe they want to help out, and they can buy that same widget for the same price. The difference is when they buy it off of your site, 50% of the profits now go back to your organization. And so we do that, and by doing that, what we're doing is we're not doing a fundraiser, we're creating a culture of fundraising where organizations are constantly raising money 24/7, 365 from anywhere in the world, simply by having people that are somehow connected to that organization buy their everyday goods and services from them. The way that I want you to really look at this is, in particular, the younger generation, they don't like to do straight donations. And so you've seen a decline in, donation-based models, whether they're a nonprofit, whether they're a church, whatever, because those that have traditionally donated are getting older and ultimately dying off, and it's your consumer base is not being replenished by the younger generation. What they're doing instead is they're doing cause purchasing. And you've seen the emergence of different companies like a Tom's Shoes, where you buy a pair of shoes and they donate a pair of shoes. You see these companies, buy a pair of socks, donate a pair of socks. What Inspire is saying is, what if I, as a consumer, am not in the market for a pair of socks? Let's look at everything that consumers buy and do and create a kickback component to that. So we're taking that same money that the consumers are spending, we're giving the power to the consumer to determine where the profits from their everyday purchases go, which consumers really like. And now in doing that, those purchases are making an ongoing social impact versus just lining the pockets of these organizations that don't really need the money, okay? So that's kind of the fundamental overview here. And so when I designed this model, I looked at a lot of emerging trends in the market, that being one. Another one being, you've seen what has happened, especially what has been, accelerated by COVID. What is the explosion of online retail versus, the malls that are just dying off, which is actually kind of sad if you walk through a mall these days. Other things are like we as a people around the globe here, we have all become more tribal. And that is really being driven by social networks and other things in the market here. But the reality of it is we're gravitating to like-minded people and forming our own little tribe. So instead of fighting that, let's embrace that and bake that into the Inspire model here. So that tribe can be a nonprofit, that tribe can be a school or a youth sports team, or a church or whatever. Gravitating to people who are like-minded, creating an ecosystem, that micro community that represents, the tribe, and that when a tribal member goes into that micro community, every action goes to support that tribe that they, as a consumer, are emotionally connected to. So what we can do here for your organization, by example, Glenn, is we can create for you for free a white label e-commerce platform that will have, obviously, you will be the primary brand here. Now, there's no cost to that, and there's also really no material work on your end. We know that raising money is a pain in the rear. Nobody likes it. And so we're trying to take that, pain off of your plate here. So the only real material work that you do on your side is on the front end of the relationship. We work with you to create a significant micro universe now through social networks and email lists and so forth. We're trying to build as wide and far of an audience as possible who can somehow go back to that site that we build for you and transact. That's really the extent of your work there. From that point, we take over and do the lion's share of the work moving forward. So what Inspire does is we build that site for you. We host that site on your behalf. We're the transaction gateway that's capturing that credit card order when they transact, and we'll show you an example of that here in a minute, and sending it to the manufacturer who drop ships it to the consumer's home. So we're essentially, what we're doing here, and we'll show you this in a bit, is we outfit your organization to be a mini Amazon there, where we have access through different sources to about 10 million SKUs of product here. So
Right.
we can by API vacuum in, hundreds of thousands and potentially millions of SKUs of product that ultimately default to your site here. So then what you do here is we'll post a message on, let's say, social network site, something to the effect of, we're looking to raise money to, build tiny houses for veterans. And here's the hyperlink to your site. The consumer then clicks on that hyperlink and they come here where they can learn more about the plight of your organization, and then come here and support your organization by transacting. So today, you as a consumer, Steve, you are in the market for an air fryer. It has absolutely nothing to do with fundraising. You today are going to go out and buy an air fryer. You can drive over to Target, buy that air fryer for, let's say, $128. You could go on Amazon, buy that same air fryer for roughly the same price. But you really like what Glenn is doing here. So now you go onto his site and you buy this air fryer for $128. We very transparently tell you as a consumer, out of that $128, $28.13 goes back to Glenn's organization. Now, what we do then is we capture that credit card order, we send it to the manufacturer who drop ships it to the consumer's home. So it is just as though, from a consumer standpoint, that you bought that off of Amazon. Okay. Now, full disclosure, this site here right now, we are transitioning to a new platform that will be done here very shortly, a lot quicker than I thought. And so we have very much a stripped down version of this. Earlier iterations of this, we had about 250,000 SKUs of product on here, which would make, Glenn as an organization one of the largest online retailers out there. Okay. And again, the fundamental idea is, I, as a consumer that are emotionally invested with what Glenn is doing as an organization, really love what he's doing here. I want to support it, but I'm not comfortable donating. Okay, well, I'm in the market for an air fryer. Now I'm going to buy it off of his site. And when I do that, 50% of the profits go back there. This is a high school football team site. We do have customized products on here. So if you have a golf tournament and you want to put your brand on, golf shirts and hats and golf balls, we can do that and have that on that site as well. The second thing we have is travel. So you are late to the party, you're booking a late spring break trip, and you would normally go to Travelocity to do so, or Priceline or whatever. Now you can come to Glenn's site, book your hotels, your flights, your car rentals. We have over 860,000 hotels worldwide on it. We get it from the same source as Priceline and Travelocity. Okay. The difference is 5% of the hotel money now goes back to Glenn's organization. There is a universal return policy of 30 days. And so what we do is we will sweep money into an online bank account right after that 30 days passes, because we don't want to give that $28 to Glenn and then somebody returns the cooker, so the air fryer. We have to let that period lapse, and then we do that, where he's going to be able to track all of those online sales that occur on his site, and then once a month we'll just, like I said, sweep money into that online bank account. Entertainment has been around for like 60 years. They had that coupon book, the door stopper there. Yep. That door stopper, they sold over $10 billion of those coupon books. And a few years ago, they decided that an app is a far superior product than the printing and shipping costs of a door stopper. And so when they became an app, we became an enterprise partner. And so as an enterprise partner, we created a white label product here called Inspire.World Perks. So the consumer now, for $34.99 a year, has access to over 500,000 discounts all over the US and in Canada. So in Dayton, Ohio, what's your zip code there?
45458.
45458.
8. Mm-hmm.
The Dayton Flyers. All right, so we have 65 pages of discounts, 1,300 pages. We've got Hothead Burritos,
There you go.
Kabuki, K&G Bike Center, Bargos Grill and Tap, the Melting Pot. Any of these ring a bell?
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, yeah.
Okay. So we've got, restaurants, automotive, golfing, health and beauty, home and garden, some online shopping, skiing, things of that nature. These things sell incredibly well, hence over $10 billion in sales. And so what we use this for is to really kind of jumpstart a fundraiser. So these organizations that have historically been, operating in the physical world, we want to get their consumers to jump over to the virtual world. And so what we do then is we kick off the fundraiser and we simply ask the consumer, buy this app. We want to strip down their focus to just as though that kid is standing at your front door and he's selling you a discount card or something like that. He's not offering you a medley of options here. He's saying, do you want to buy this discount card or not? And so we want to narrow that focus to your consumer base and say, please buy this app to support our organization, of which $15 goes back out of the $34.99. Now the consumer is in our orbit, and on behalf of the nonprofit or other organization, we're their ongoing marketing arm. So we are tracking those analytics when that consumer comes in our orbit. We're tracking their every movement. We're ingesting those analytics, processing, and then regurgitating ongoing messaging to their consumer base, because we want that consumer to buy something today, a month from today, a year from today, thereby creating that culture of giving. And so we start off with that. And then at that point, later on, we can spoon feed them. Oh, by the way, there's a store over here and travel and things of that nature. We can do kind of a second spike here where we can say, we've got these customized products here. The point being here is that we will, jumpstart that fundraiser and manage it going forward. So it's not just for a short finite period of time. It's just something that organization has, on the back end there. They're not even thinking about it, and money's kind of just showing up in their account here. Looking at everything that consumers, buy and do, and also in the spirit of trying to create a platform for for that organization, for people, that are members of the tribe, so to speak, that like what the organization's doing. We want to add functionality to that site and create a safe and friendly environment for their consumer base to operate ongoing here. So front end, in a global sense, we're creating a global commerce and information ecosystem for which Inspire controls the flow of information. And as previously noted, that entire information flow is about one thing, and it's about doing good. Counter to what you see all over the place of the hate speak and cancel culture that's fostered in mainstream social networks. We want a safe, friendly environment for consumers to operate there. And over time, in the spirit of let's look at everything, we will add functionality. So for instance, I have sources for 50,000 family-friendly movies. So instead of paying Netflix $9.95 a month, you're paying that nonprofit $9.95 a month, and giving another reason for that consumer that's a member of the tribe to want to proactively go to that tribal site and do other things there. And when they come there, every time Inspire can monetize them, either by them buying something or by virtue of that traffic that's driving the advertising revenue. I can put music, I can put video games, I can put services. So I used to do something with DirecTV on those stupid little varsity gold cards that had an alphanumeric code associated with me on it. And when somebody activated that code, they wrote me a check for $125 for that lead, ADT $150. So if we can look at all sorts of things that consumers buy and do, we can really change how we can create a sea change, truly create a sea change in how people consume and transact here. And look at it that, everything, and I know I'm using that term in a broad sense, but everything that people do can have a social impact. It's not the platform itself was intentionally built to be malleable. It's not a rigid platform here. We can deal with different organizations, and we can conform to their needs. So by example, we worked with a university up in Canada during COVID, and their biggest fundraiser of the year was an in-person auction. Canada, did not allow any in-person activity much longer than the US. And so they came to us and they said, could you create an online auction site for us using your fundamental platform? And we said, yes. And so they came up with the prizes. They actually came up with an auctioneer. They came up with a band. And we sold tickets to this online event, and they raised $60,000 in 3 hours. There's a finite amount of revenue within that tournament event. Mm-hmm. What we can do is help them capture revenue outside of the event. So, for instance, there are teams that come to that tournament and they need to get hotel rooms. And so the tournament will say to those teams, you need to book your travel through the tournament itself, which is us. And so the tournament is getting revenue outside of that through hotel rooms, through people buying the app, and that when they come to the tournament, they're not just sitting in their hotel, they're going to local restaurants where that tournament is, and so on and so forth. In full capacity, we're kind of wiring an online community, okay? Mm-hmm. Because what we want to do as we grow is we want to, for example, go into that local high school, and we want to set up a unique site for each and every one of those teams and organizations in that site. The football team, basketball team, the dance team, the band, the choir, all of them, and then have them spread their tentacles out into the community at large, so that Joe's Pizzeria, that would normally be a sponsor for the high school football team, by putting an ad in their, in a printed form in their program that's there for the duration of the season, can now put a tile ad on their site and be able to interchange that ad much more in lockstep with the traditional seasonality of advertising. And, so we're kind of wiring those communities. And when we get into when we finish off the 2.0 platform, that we will have, different applications for AI, we can do things like, when somebody drives into a geo-fenced off territory that's adjacent to Joe's Pizzeria there, a pop-up ad comes on their smartphone, turn right in 600 feet to get a buy one, get one, $2 goes back to the football. It's a very simple process. So you can send them to me, and then I can do, I can have a meeting with them. Our site that they can go to our public site, that's going to be changed here. But the process is very simple. We have an online form that they fill out, that what we call a partner agreement, and all it's saying is, name of the organization, contact information, how much, and just some little other information, and then the terms and conditions, essentially how that organization is going to get paid. That then creates an internal trigger there that triggers us building out that site for that organization. We're not asking you for any money. We're not asking for any time. We give you this site for free, and we're taking pain off your plate here. And so we have no problem getting business here. For us, I have an extraordinary amount of business under contract that I have no ability to service right now. So we're out there, amongst other things, raising money for our seed round. We self-funded our pre-seed round that enabled us to build the 1.0 version. But now we're trying to get in that conveyor belt so that we can process, thousands of these a week versus, a handful a week kind of thing. Stuff is, we build a landing page, a site for you. You then create a QR code for that site. When you have an event, just have somebody scan your phone, and it pulls up your site on their phone.